I'm Gene Grant here in the studios of New Mexico PBS with our Line Opinion panelists. We're getting ready to dive into this week's show, but we always like to begin with a topic to get us all warmed up. This week we had a lot of important topics on the table as possible topics, and since we don't have time for all of them, we want to take a minute to just highlight some of them. Adrian, let me start with you. What caught your eye this week? What are you paying attention to?
Oh man, there's so much happening this week, but one of the things that I just can't get over is Mayor Keller's response to the art bus breaking down outside, going out of town. I think at first they said, well, this about sums it up, and
right.
I think that's right. And I'm interested to see what's happening. It looks like they're buying some diesel buses, which the environmentalist in me is disappointed about. But I live right off of Central. I'm looking forward to seeing our public transit system being actually functioning and improved. We need true transit equity.
Were you pro-electric, in the general sense?
In a general sense,
okay.
Yeah. I think we need to move towards a more sustainable way of transporting people around the city. But we also have to think about equity when it comes to transportation. And when we build on a mother line like Central, we also need to think about how we're getting folks from all parts of the city into all other parts of the city.
Good point there. Need a bigger plan. Exactly right. Yeah. Merritt, what's out there of the many, many things that are out there? What's out there for you?
I think the news this week that federal charges are pending against the Taos compound residents who we came to know about as the public in a horrific child abuse story that resulted in the death of a child. And just the complexity of the case when you've got a private landowner, local law enforcement, the FBI, children at risk, and everything seems to fail. So I'm following this case, and I'm pleased to see that charges are moving forward because it's certainly. Domestic terror is, of course, very, very frightening, but we are also looking at the safety of children.
That's right. You mentioned in passing, as part of the taking off the things there, the local law enforcement versus federal thing, they just sort of missed early. And, the Taos County, it just didn't come off well for them, for Taos County. I'm wondering if this situation might have some bounce for them and improve their practices.
It can be hard because what local law enforcement can do compared to what federal law enforcement can do with regard to resources and people. And when you have overlap, a lot of agencies don't have an interoperability plan. And we see this happen in Washington, D.C. all the time, where you have 17 different police forces who could all be involved in an event. So this, it was domestic terror, which was, of course, very shocking to us in New Mexico, especially with two national labs, very frightening. And then also a private homeowner speaking out saying, there's something wrong here.
That's right.
And the delay, the 5 months.
That's right.
That's what's concerning to me, and that time a child died.
That's a tough one. Exactly right. Sophie, what do you think? What's out there?
Well, I'm going to say this. I'm no Ariana Grande, but I'm going to make a plea for kindness in this holiday season. And one of the areas that I saw a real lack of kindness in the news in the last weeks is this report, this sort of one of our 50 is missing report about a DC marriage clerk who didn't know that New Mexico was a U.S. state. And I think, somebody who shall remain nameless decided to take an opportunity to make a big show for himself in the news, and as a result, potentially put that person's job at risk. And we're talking about somebody in D.C. who, I don't know what their educational background is. I don't know what their life is like, but I do know that it's unlikely that the fact of New Mexico being a state is something that comes up for them every day or is a major issue in their lives. You don't need a higher degree in geography to be a clerk in the marriage office, and I don't see any reason to make an example out of somebody who's just doing their job. And part of that person's job is to check your ID. So
if every person who had made that clerk's mistake had been outed in this manner, it would dominate the news all day long. I mean, I felt.
Yeah, we live in New York, but I'm sorry, we live in New York. We live in New Mexico. Woo, where did that come from? We live in New Mexico. We know things about our state that we wouldn't expect somebody in Rhode Island to know, and vice versa.
Yeah. Interesting. It was everywhere.
It was, and I think ultimately the decision to go national, to speak so publicly about it, was quite mean-spirited.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. Daniel, What's out there? What have you been?
Well, there's two. One of them, obviously, is the passing of President Bush. I thought one of the most interesting times was when President Clinton read the letter that President Bush wrote him.
Yeah.
It was a pretty interesting moment. That was a pretty heated campaign.
Right.
It was not a friendly campaign. President Bush was ahead all the way up till the end. It was kind of, if everybody remembers, it was a surprise when they announced that President Clinton won. Everybody was like, the guy from Arkansas.
Right.
But the handwritten note that was penned by President Bush, and from a lot of the people that came forward to speak, I thought his son W's eulogy was very touching. I thought the stories that have been coming out, especially the one when they were going to clear out the cathedral, the Capitol, for the family to have a final moment. There was apparently still a line out around the street, and President Bush and the family said, no, those people can all come in, and they can share this moment with us. So I thought to your kindness comment, I thought that was a real opportunity that our country, I think, did well. Everybody came together. The other great opportunity I thought this week that I really want to talk about that didn't make the cut was the absolute thumping the Lobos took from the Aggies in basketball.
Ouch.
The score.
It was bad, wasn't it? It was bad.
The score was not even indicative of the game, and the crowd down there. Oh yeah, I drove down to watch the game, and the crowd. Boy, I'll tell you, if I was, I'd heard all the stuff about Coach Weir, and it was not a surprise that he walked in with 4 police officers around him, because that crowd. There was a lady sitting behind me who had to be 60-something years old, very well kept. Her and her husband, very neat. They had on the Aggie gear they were wearing was not cheap. The minute he walked out, this Benedict Arnold sign came, and the spit was flowing over my shoulder. I was like, oh, she is really upset. So, but, I would tell you the score was not indicative of the game. Congratulations to Coach Jans and the New Mexico State Aggies as they get ready to take on Kansas in Kansas City this Saturday.
That's right.
We just had the announcement about who's playing the New Mexico Bowl, and right now I can't remember who it is.
The University of Utah?
David Dean Smith.
Oh, my.
Oh, University of Utah. It's Utah State.
Interesting, actually.
So that's another quick one, Gene. Is the New Mexico Bowl this next Saturday, Utah State versus North Texas. Utah State is coachless. Their coach took the job at Texas Tech, and he wasn't even at the press conference. And the coach from North Texas is rumored to be replacing the guy at Kansas State. So there's a real opportunity that we may have interim coaches coaching the New Mexico Bowl.
Right.
But
It's a big opportunity,
It's
huh?
a great opportunity. Utah State's already announced they're bringing back a former coach, but it's December 15th, Saturday, out at UNM, Dreamstyle Arena. Utah State University, nationally ranked, against North Texas. It should be a lot of points.
There you go. Should be fun. Thank you all. Appreciate that.